morning, Levi! It's Wednesday. I've been really busy calling a lot of potential investors recently. Sadly, no one wants to invest in my new gaming company, Time Crunch Incorporated, until I've played some real video games. And I'm talking real obscure ones too. No more Mario Brothers for me. Apparently no one even cares that I played off. Apparently everyone knows it because it inspired Undertale. No, for this, I need the most indie of indie games. Something that'll really show investors I know what I'm talking about. I got it.
Cave Story is one of those critically acclaimed games in the indie circle that I've never learned anything about. Everyone to my knowledge seems to really like it, and it falls into the category of games like Undertale and Hollow Knight of indie darlings. However, unlike those two games, I have no clue what Cave Story could even be about, except for, caves? Stories, maybe? Let's just jump in and we'll figure it out. Cave Story was released in 2004, meaning that it and I are the same age, and was made by a one-person development team, Studio Pixel. While I did end up playing the 2011 remake Cave Story Plus, I could still hardly tell that this game was made so long ago and so leanly. It felt like a game that could easily be released this year without anyone noticing. Cave Story is a Metroidvania, a genre defined by side-scrolling platforming and backtracking, as well as upgrade-based progression that comes from the progenitors of the genre, Metroid and Castlevania, hence the name. This gameplay is done impressively well, and coincides with the story and characters Cave Story works hard to craft over the course of a playthrough, which on its own takes about 5 hours. All this is to say, people say it's pretty good, so let's take a look at it.
Well, I did my research and Wikipedia literally calls it the quintessential indie game, so it has to be good enough. But what if it isn't? What if everyone's played Cave Story and my pitch is just gonna fade into the background? What if I come up with a super unique story for why my Cave Story experience is so much more important than anyone else's? That'll definitely set me apart and finally get some bank to let me take out a business loan. I just gotta start writing.
Cave Story doesn't bother giving our main character a backstory, as it turns out they have amnesia, and throughout the whole game, they basically have no idea what's going on, but that's okay, because just like our player character, we don't know what's happening either. We look like and people refer to us as a robot, so we'll go with that for now. After some minor theft of a weapon from a sleeping old guy, we quickly stumble on the main locale for the rest of the game, Mimiga Village. You might be wondering, what's a Mimiga? Why do they have a village in this cave? Are you even pronouncing Mimiga right? Well, I can answer one of those questions for you. Mimiga are these little rabbit guys who seemingly just chill out in this cave and eat flowers. That's nice. But uh-oh, they've recently been terrorized by someone named the Doctor, who's kidnapping Mimiga and doing experiments on them. These nasty goons, Balrog and Misery, for all intents and purposes do not matter, mistakenly kidnapped the wrong Mimiga as they were looking for one named Sue, and they run off and it's your job to stop them. You're the one who stole the gun after all.
I think the best way to get my story across is by writing a novel, so I started writing and I think I struck gold here. Once upon a time, I hear a lot of books do that. I was browsing the Epic Game Store for free games, downloading them and then forgetting them, when I found this game, Cave Story. Nobody had ever heard of it, and it was so unique that I just knew from looking at the store page that it would teach me everything I needed to know about video games. So I downloaded it and started playing.
Throughout the game, you basically do chores for the Mimiga, like checking on an egg, rescuing Sue's brother, and pruning some flowers. Along the way, we get a bunch of lore dumps from talking to various NPCs, and they fill us in on the goings-on. Those flowers, it turns out, are the reason Mimiga exist in the first place, as they will go crazy and murder people if they eat the special red flowers, and they were originally engineered to help fight wars on the surface world. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention the cave is a floating island in the sky. Not much of a cave, if you ask me. All of the lore comes into focus as you learn there's an artifact called the Demon Crown sealed on the island that the Doctor must have found, and that you were actually sent to destroy. The Doctor is using those evil red flowers for his evil experiments, and eventually he succeeds in creating a cool gem that mimics the flower power for his own nefarious desires, turning him into monstrous and leading to a Final Fantasy level of sequential final boss fights, which involves him turning into the core of the island. Which, I guess the island has a core. Sure. Now before we finish up the story and such, I must admit to you that while I was researching this video, I got incredibly off track. I looked at the Cave Story's Metacritic page, and while it's exactly what you'd expect from an online space, I got completely lost in reading negative reviews, because some of them are insane. I want you to read this review and then tell me what score out of 10 this person gave the game. Yeah, it was a 2. And that's all well and good until I found this review for the 3DS version. This guy, hustlin', is now my favorite Metacritic user because nothing they've reviewed makes any sense. Look at this Minecraft review. The best I can tell, it's a reference to Yogscast videos, but it's still really low. All of their reviews are either 0s or 1s, except for this review of a Hatsune Miku game, which I think was an accident based on how they seem to hate it in the description, but still super funny. Okay, sorry to distract, I just had to share that. Getting back on track, this game, just like real life, has multiple endings depending on your choices that you may or may not know you have. The first two are pretty pedestrian, where you can either decide to bail on one of those eggs from earlier that hatched into a dragon, or stay and fight the Doctor, a classic coward and hero ending pair. The third and final ending, however, involves skipping a specific item in the game, and then rescuing a character who normally dies, and from there killing the evil wizard who originally made the demon crown, which, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't know it was possible at all. In that way, it feels like this game was an early originator of the dependence on internet for game secrets. So many video games now hide incredibly obscure secrets that only 1 in 10,000 players will find, because they know people will share on the internet, and in that way everyone can find it. The best ending of Cave Story feels a lot like that, because I certainly would have never found it without the internet. Cave Story shines through its gameplay and its story. While the core mechanics are fairly pedestrian, the way the game puts everything together with different weapon types and upgrades makes exploring levels exciting and new every time. The characters you meet along your journey are all well thought out and similarly well executed. Even though I made fun of it a little bit earlier, Misery and Balrog are still fun characters and do have story significance. Others like King, who's the leader of Mimiga Village, has motivations that make him feel realistic even when he's antagonistic. Cave Story does a great job at nailing the little things that result in a complete package that I have very few issues with. It was fun, start to finish. Cave Story was hugely influential at the time of its release due to its gameplay and focus on character-based storytelling. The ability for one person to make such an acclaimed game led to a rise in the idea of indie games that didn't need big studios and even bigger budgets to make an impact. I have a few gripes, like this game committed the Metroidvania cardinal sin of having incredibly inconvenient save points, but everything bad I could say about this game is negligible. And we all know how much I love Undertale, and Cave Story arguably inspired facets of that game, at least according to these people on Steam forums. While I don't fully believe the connection, as I couldn't find Toby Fox saying as such, the parallels are definitely there to draw if you want to. I very much enjoyed my time with Cave Story, and now I can finally say that I played the quintessential indie game.
And just like that, I became president, immortal, and had $500 down payment on my new Chevy, all thanks to Cave Story. I learned so much about game design and gamer culture that I knew I could handle your investment money. The end. Well, there you have it. I think this is definitely good enough for me to get a call back. I just gotta send out my final copy to the publisher. Yes, I'll definitely take your investment money. What? Oh. Okay. It was Chevy calling. I've defaulted on my last 3 payments. Levi, I'll see you on Saturday.